Hello friends, welcome back in our second session of Unix operating system. So today we are going to discuss about Unix operating system Bootup. So before going in depth, we will first understand how the Bootup works in Unix system, and I will show you that by the real life example. Okay, so let me open my, yes, this is the board, and if you have a computer which has Unix operating system installed on it, then you simply need to turn on its power. That's something we all already know to make it live. As soon as you turn on the power, system starts booting up. Okay, and that is what we are going to discuss right now. And finally, it prompts you to log in into the system, and which is an activity to log into the system and use it for your day-to-day. That we all know, when we turn on the power on our Unix operating system, it will boot up, and once the boot up is done, it will prompt you to the login screen, and once you are logged in, the system will become operational for you to use it further. Okay, now let me draw a diagram here of how this boot up systems are done. So whatever boot up is done, sorry. So whatever we have discussed right now is, let me make it here, power on. So here we have power on the system. Okay. And once the power is on, what will be done is, let me open a separate, okay, so let me make a circle here. So here hardware initialization will done. Hardware initialization, that is also called as post. So let me draw all the pictures, or I'm not sure how would you like me to go. Either I should go one by one or draw all the pictures and then explain. So it's up to you. Okay, so let me let me explain. Let me draw one by one and explain at the same time. So this is hardware initialization. As soon as we turn on the power, hardware will start initializing. So internally, this is all internal. We cannot see it, but at some stage we can feel it. The computer's hardware components go through a series of checks. So what does it do? As soon as we turn on the power, there will be a series of checks inside the computer that will be happening. And what this will exactly check? It will check the CPU, RAM, storage devices, and other hardware components. While you cannot see the process directly, I mean, we cannot see the process directly, we might see LED lights and hear from spinning, because the spinning, the fan will start rotating, okay, indicating that the hardware is being initialized. Okay, so this is the first step. As soon as second step, as soon as we turn on the power, and I'm considering power 1, power on is a first step. So now what will happen is bootloader. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so let me draw it here. I'm just taking out. Okay, so here is the bootloader. Okay, and bootloader is also called as grub. Okay, so this is grub. Yeah, so if your computer uses the grub bootloader, you might see a screen with options to choose the operating system you want to boot into. This is for the case when you have multiple operating systems installed. So it will give you few seconds to make a selection before the default OS loads. Okay, so if you have the grub only, it will wait for some time so that you can choose between default operating system and any other operating system you would like to load. So bootloader will load if you don't make any choice, then what will happen? Default operating system will start loading up. Okay, and this is a visible part of the boot process. Yeah. What will happen thereafter? Kernel loading. Okay, so after you make a selection, or if there's only one OS installed, the bootloader loads the Linux kernel into memory. Okay, so what bootloader will do? Bootloader will load the Linux kernel into memory. While this is happening, you might see a progress bar or message scrolling on the screen, indicating that the kernel is being loaded. Okay, so while bootloader is loading up kernel into the memory, what you will observe on the screen is there will be a progress bar. So once the progress, once the kernel loading is done into the memory, that part is done. Thereafter, so let me add that step also here. So after bootloader, what is happening here is kernel loading. Let me draw it quickly. Kernel loading. Okay, loading. So this is what we just discussed. What this is my mistake. Let me type in correctly. Okay, so this is kernel loading. So what happened? What happened during the kernel loading? Here, bootloader has loaded kernel into the memory. Okay, so that is done. Now, once the kernel loading is done, the next process comes into picture is the init process. Okay, so let me draw that as well. Init process. Yeah, this is also called as system MD. System MD. Yeah. Once the kernel is loaded, what will happen thereafter? The init process, okay, is responsible for initializing system services and processes. So now you know, once the kernel is loaded, what will happen? The init process will start, and what init process will do is basically initialize the system processes and services. Okay, so you might see message on the screen indicating the progress of the initialization, sometimes such as starting network services or mounting file system. Yeah, so all these processes will get initiated by the init process. Okay, now you will get a user process, user space. It's like that. You will get a user space. Initialization. Yeah, user space initialization. As the init process proceeds, okay, what will happen thereafter? It starts user level services like graphical desktop environment, networking, and other background processes. If you have a graphical desktop environment installed like GNOME or KDE, you will eventually see the login screen or graphical desktop environment loading. Okay, so what will happen once the init process is started? Init process has started the background processes, system services, if all those are initialized, thereafter we will get to see a user space initialization. Okay, where we will get a user space like the graphical demonstration of environment, graphical desktop environment. Okay, that is only when we have the GNOME or KDE installed. Okay, thereafter we will get a user login prompt. This is something we observe in our day-to-day life. User login prompt, and we all know what happens there, so I will not explain much here. We just enter our username and password for the system, to be able to use it further. Okay. So once logged in, we will be able to use our Unix operating system for multiple purposes. Maybe that could be for shell scripting, that could be for file management, or any other purpose that we do on Unix boxes. Okay, and like we discussed, if we have GNOME and KDE installed, then we may get to see a graphical desktop. Okay, so this is one process. Graphical desktop. Yeah, so let me type it completely. Yeah. So if you are using a graphical user interface, you will see your desktop environment mode with icons, panels, and the ability to launch applications. We must have seen this on Ubuntu operating system, Ubuntu machines also, where we have one terminal to perform all multiple operations, to run multiple commands, and also we have a graphical user interface to display, where we have multiple applications also installed. Yeah, this is the point where you can interact with the Unix system as a user. Yeah, so this is graphical desktop. Let me draw and connect the diagram, but in the meanwhile I will pause the video so that it won't take your much time. Okay, so this is the last arrow. Let me connect it so that it will be pretty much visible here. Yeah, now let me also write here about the topic we discussed: Unix operating system Bootup. Yeah, Unix operating system Bootup. Yeah, so let me change my screen, and whatever we discussed has all been documented in this PPT over the screen, and I'm not going to read it loud, so we can refer it. And all those things which we just discussed, like hardware initialization, bootloader, kernel loading, init process, user space initialization, user login, and graphical desktop, all has been documented here, can also be referred. Okay, so the summary of it is, this example illustrates the observable steps. So I tried to explain you how this operating system bootup is getting done. When do we see the LED lights? When do we see the progress bar on the screen? When do we see the fan spinning and user login, graphical desktop? Yeah. So all those I try to cover it up so that we can relate the very details of Unix operating system bootup that is being done. Okay, so thank you so much, my friends. See you in the third session of little bit of going through commands instead of discussing just the theory. We will be more focused on learning through the terminal hands-on approach. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.